Hey, Link here. Thanks for joining me for episode 119, where I speak with Devon Wiersma. In this episode, we talk about topics such as who they are, the Toronto indie scene, how they got into the industry, some words of encouragement, life outside of games, games that surprised them, favorite games, and some lightning round questions. Before we get started, don't forget there are links in the episode description that you can follow to learn more about Devon as well as the podcast. Also, don't forget to like and share the episode, and without further ado, enjoy episode 119. Hi, and welcome to the Red Tunic podcast, the podcast where I look to rediscover what makes gaming fun and enjoyable by having positive conversations with those related to the industry. My name is Link, and today I'm joined by Devon Wiersma, indie developer of games like Centauri Dark and Bombing 1 and 2. Hi, Devon, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am doing all right. It is a Saturday, um, and the only thing outside of speaking with you today is Naked Gun. So like it's a good day basically for me.
Ooh.
How is your Saturday shaping up right now?
Likewise. I mean, not the Naked Gun, but that is actually a good idea. My partner and I started watching those because we found out there's a new one coming out, and we were like, we've never seen those. Why not watch them? So we watched like all three of them a couple months ago, and now we're also excited for this new one. So we'll probably check that out at some point too.
That's that's awesome. I'm kind of jealous of you in a weird way because I watched Naked Gun and other Leslie Nielsen movies when I was a kid, when I was younger. I'm 37 for context.
Mhm.
So years and years ago, and I've repeatedly watched them over the years. But they're such fantastic movies. He was such a great actor that I'm jealous that you got to experience those as an adult when like the fresh impact of them would have been the most appreciated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I watched what was the one with Charlie Sheen? Hot Shots, which is like in a very similar kind of vein, but it's like a Top Gun parody. But it felt like kind of a successor to Naked Gun in a sort of way. So it was kind of fun watching Naked Gun after that and being like, oh, it's like, yeah, it's like Hot Shots. Like I liked Hot Shots. And like some of it now is like kind of hokey, like sort of corny humor, but there's some bits in there that are actually like surprisingly like held up pretty well. So we got a good kick out of it.
And then that's awesome. Now, if you want to see more of Leslie Nielsen doing effectively the same shtick, there's a movie called Spy Hard, which is like a Mission Impossible kind of spoof.
Spy Hard.
Um, but it's
Oh,
basically Leslie Nielsen. It's like the same premise basically as Police Squad if he was a super spy or a secret agent, like Bond type. Um,
perfect.
ye-
It's like that Steve Carell one that came out a few years ago where he was also a spy and it was like a similar sort of thing. Shoot, what was that one called?
Get Smart, maybe.
That one, yeah. That one was also
I'm
pretty goofy.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't know why that name actually came to me. I don't know where that one riled later. Um,
It's not a movie you think about very often. Like nobody remembers
no,
like
it's
2010 Get Smart.
no, exactly. But yeah, like if you want to see Leslie Nielsen doing a similar shtick, if you enjoyed like just the everything of Naked Gun, Spy Hard is a fantastic jump up, and it also has a Bond-esque intro done by Weird Al.
Ooh, you love to see it. Cool. All right. I'm adding that one to our list, our
I, I
ever-growing
hope
watch list.
I hope you enjoy it. It's one of my childhood favorites in terms of spoof movies because uh we got into that weird habit of like scary movie and stuff where the parody element went, in my opinion, the parody element went way too hard, like
Hmm.
into hokey territory. Um Things that I don't think would age as well. Whereas I think like the Naked Gun types, they aged far better just because they had some sense of grounding, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like we watch a lot of like bad movies just for fun. And there's a noticeable like drop off after the 90s where it starts to become more just like referential humor where it's like referencing a movie that exists and like pointing and laughing at that movie that exists versus Leslie Nielsen's stuff is a lot more based around I guess just tropes. So it's not specifically like here's this moment from this movie that you watching this definitely know, and it's more just like haha, isn't it funny how spy movies do this or like how cop movies will do this. So you don't feel like left out of the joke sometimes for not knowing the material it's referencing. It's more just like here's a funny like we all know this is a thing that always happens in this, so like haha, let's point and laugh at it. I totally know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I've said that before to some, they're like, "Well, what's the problem?" I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, I don't mean it offensively. It's like we're just like it's not. I can't explain it to you if you don't understand it, right? So I'm glad
Yeah.
that made sense to you because it's a really weird thing to try and explain because it's like some vague, high level topic kind of thing that's like you have to get it, right?
Hmm.
Which are always, the most fun things to ever try and talk to anyone about. It's like, well, crap. Like, what do I do? Like, we're not gonna see
Yeah.
the eye to eye on this. We can't.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, Devin, thank you for being here. Thank you, for humoring the weird little tangent on on movies.
Yeah. We
Now
talk about video games and we talk about Leslie Nielsen movies.
I'm not gonna lie, that'd probably be a wild podcast to begin with. There's enough of them, and he's done enough movies. You could probably make a Leslie Nielsen podcast work.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but anyway, I do want to ask this before we get started, before we jump into things. Would you mind telling me and anyone listening a little bit about yourself, kind of like the elevator pitch or like the 411 of who you are, the basic things that you think people just need to know, so that way we have like a ground floor before we go any further.
Sure, yeah. Hi, I'm a game developer. I went to school for game design here in Ontario for 4 years. I got like a degree in it. Ooh. Um, that was back in like I graduated in like 2018. And through that and various other things, I worked at a few small local like indie studios and some startup work. After graduating, I wound up at Ubisoft Toronto and I worked on Far Cry 6 and helped them ship that. And then moved on back to indie and sort of did some more stuff. Got laid off and was like, bah humbug. And then wound up teaching. So I teach game development at a local university now. Yeah, and then all throughout that, kind of seeded through that whole journey, I've just been making my own games on the side. I kind of dropped off after college a little bit on doing my own stuff, especially while working at like a big studio like Ubisoft. It's kind of harder to juggle that. But at some point through there, I was like, you know what, I wasn't finding, I guess, um, creative fulfillment as easily, kind of being just a cog in the machine. So I was like, I'm gonna make my own stuff. I'm gonna like do my own thing and just kind of get a feel for it. It's not like high stakes. It's just sort of like figuring out what I like to make and like finding the fun in the craft and the process again. And then yeah, through that I started just like publishing my own indie stuff. It started with a tabletop RPG system called Runt Tabletop RPG, which was basically designed to be the lightest possible thing that you can play with anybody. It works by you don't need any materials for it. You just need a common understanding between two people and the ability to pick a number, which is pretty fun. That got kickstarted actually because I needed art for it. So I was like, I'm gonna try to kickstart something so I can get some art money. Um, and then that was kind of like my first adventure into getting back into making games after college. And that led me into making bombing because at the time I was kind of getting into street art. And I was like, there's not really a lot of games that are about making street art. There's a lot of games that use street art as like an aesthetic or like a gameplay function, but none of them are really about like just sort of being able to create art, and the ones that were like in VR. So I was like, I'm gonna make something that you can just kind of play at a computer. I didn't really think too much of it at the time, and then it did a bit better than I expected. It didn't do like amazing, but when I was expecting absolutely nothing, like getting something out there that people were actually kind of engaging with was really exciting. Yeah, and I've kind of just continued doing it ever since. I made a like hidden object game called Lofty Quest that's kind of like this narrative 3D diorama style hidden object thing. So you can like turn a map around and like find secrets within it. I made Bombing 2, which is a lot like Bombing 1, which is also just a street art game where I give you an environment, you can paint street art. Um, so that was like me wanting to make Bombing 1 but better, and I think I did. Uh, and then there's Centauri Dark, which you mentioned, which was a more recent thing. I wanted to make something a little more action oriented. So it's sort of a roguelike arena shooter where you fight waves of robots, and it's pretty cool. And I tried to make something a little bit stylish. Uh, and I feel like I forgot one. I'm at a good point, obviously, where I've made enough. I've shipped enough indie games at this point that I'm like, did I talk about all of them? I don't remember. Um, oh, and I'm working on a new one actually that is kind of a multiplayer cleaning style game. I don't know if you've heard the term friend slop, but it's sort of like that where inspired by like Lethal Company and like Repo and stuff. Not the same kind of gameplay. It's a lot more casual than those, but the same sort of idea of just being a vector to get together with your friends and just kind of doing something meditative, kind of like Power Wash Simulator. But yeah, that's kind of the works that I worked on. But I do a bunch of stuff. It's if it hasn't been clear at this point, I get around. I've worked in indie and AAA and on my own stuff, so I've run the gamut, so to speak.
So thank you for for sharing all of that. And sorry, I'm laughing at the term friend slob. I had not heard that before, and I wrote it down just because that's um it's an interesting genre? Question mark? That like that's an interesting name for like a genre or like a framework or whatever. So thank you for introducing that into my knowledge base. I was gonna say lexicon. I'm like, but I don't think there's ever a time where I'm going to actively say that word. Just because I'm not in positions enough to like actively promote friends slop.
You're not talking
But
about friend slop all the time. It's
yeah,
fine.
exactly. Sorry, that's just such a weird word, weird
It's
like
Yeah,
genre thing.
I think they introduced the person. It was some like I don't know, Twitter post or something that took off. Which who's using Twitter nowadays? Come on. But it was a Twitter post that like somebody I think was trying to use it as like an insult, but I think it kind of latched on as like no, it's kind of a good definition of these games where they're made pretty low budget and quickly, but they have enough like multiplayer features and kind of thought put behind them that they're just like a fun time to play with your friends. So it came back around to being like a good thing and sort of actually working for what those games are. So it's kind of nice in that way.
Yeah, yeah, it's kinda like Slavjank, right? Like, if you or Eurojank, where if you don't know that those are terms of endearment when it comes to that genre of game or that, like, area of games, you would think that was an insult to be like, "Oh, yeah, no, it's just Slavjank," but it's like, well, no, it's Slavjank. Slavjank's fantastic, right?
Yeah,
Um
it's why we love it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, you don't play these games for polish, you play these games for the slab jank, right? Like, Stalker wasn't good because it was Stalker. Well, it was good because it was Stalker, but it was fantastic because of the absolute nonsense that the not polished bits introduced, right?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I get 100% what you mean by someone tried to like use it insultingly, and everyone went, "Oh no, this is a term of endearment now. Thank you for that." Um,
Yeah, exactly.
'Cause, yeah, it makes like, I get it right away, I get what it is, it's just I don't play a lot of those games. Like, oh,
Mhm.
well, I'll never have the opportunity to really use it. But thank you, I'm happy to know that that exists, and also, if I ever hear it, I can be like, "Bam, I know what you're meaning," right?
Yeah.
Um, Also, a few things that touching on that you mentioned, you're in the Toronto area. which has a surprisingly healthy indie scene. And I've always found it interesting that, like, when I look into it, and this is from like an outsider, so I could be totally wrong in how I see this, how I stumble across it, or what have you. But like, is it just me, or is the Toronto scene kind of broken up into a lot of different groups that don't seem to like stack on top of each other? And I say that in the sense of like, from what I've seen, if people are a part of like a group that's like out of San Antonio, Texas, or like Ottawa, or like Vancouver, or what have you, those scenes are pretty, like the Vancouver scene is the Vancouver scene, the Ottawa scene is the Ottawa scene, the like the San Antonio, or the Austin, the Boston, the whatever. Like those scenes are all generally the same kind of people. But from what I've seen, Toronto is a bunch of small groups that aren't, I don't wanna say play nicely, because that's definitely the wrong way to put it, but, like, they're a bunch of, like, different groups that don't really work with each other, or, like, aren't stacked on each other. Am I correct in this, or am I just wrong in how I look at it?
Interesting. I'm it's the first I've ever heard of that being the perception. But I'd be interested to know where that, I guess, comes from potentially. Like, um, my experience with the game development scene in Toronto is that, yeah, there's a small handful of like various pretty established independent studios, which lately have been struggling to get funding because everybody's struggling to get funding. But and then there's sort of the like upper tier of like AAA studios like Ubisoft Toronto, which kind of operate on their own level. But I think it's pretty, from my experience at least, it feels like things have always been pretty integrated with each other, or a lot of kind of like co-working and intermingling. Yeah, I guess I'm interested to know like where you got that impression from.
So, like, yeah, definitely I can elaborate, and I think the way I was, like, trying to explain it, I think I did it wrong. I think I made it sound a little more negative, way more negative, sorry, than intentioned.
Mm,
Um, when I would see people that were like in different areas, the scene, the overlap of all of the people was like, the two circles, the Venn diagram, they were like almost complete circles, right?
mm,
One of the thing I noticed for Toronto, and maybe it's just me not following enough Toronto devs,
mhm,
perfectly honest. But like I noticed that the overlap for Toronto ones that I would see, there wasn't a whole lot. So like there were several circles in that diagram, and it was much smaller pieces overlapping compared to other places um, where I saw them. Those circles were like always on top of each other almost. And again, me saying this now, and after what you said, it could also just be I'm not following enough people, or like um, a bad survey count, or you know what
bad
I
like
mean? Like,
sample size, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it could also just be 100% that, where like the people from like Boston or Vancouver or whatever that I see, they're just all incidentally much tighter knit than the people in Toronto I'm following.
Mm,
Again, not to like say that, you're not tight knit, but you know what I mean. Um, so that
yeah.
could also just be that. It could just be a horrible sample size and me having a horrible preconceived notion of it. Again, I don't think look at it like negatively. It's just from s- my view, it always seemed interesting to me, but it seems I'm probably just looking at it from the wrong angle.
I mean, it could potentially be like maybe it does seem that way. I mean, I guess I've been like interacting with people in and around Toronto indie stuff for a while, and I've never personally gotten that impression, but like I think there is kind of this weird thing with Toronto where um like what am I trying to say? The there's a lot of like schools and stuff in the area, and a lot of them that have started adopting like teaching game development. So I think maybe it lends itself more to just like seeming a lot more broken up in that sense. Like there's like a small handful of things that I would point to and be like, "Oh yeah, this is like a really important space for indie developers." Like we have co-working spaces downtown, and like organizations that do a lot of work to like kind of bring indies together and like kind of bridge the art scene. There's nonprofit group called the Hand-Eye Society, which is very good, and they organize like events and festivals and stuff. And they're very like supportive of the local indie scene, which I would recommend anybody go check those out. They're very good. We had for a while Gamma Space downtown, which unfortunately was, I think they got caught up in problems with the municipal government based on like zoning nonsense and got kicked out of their building, which was unfortunate. And like that kind of put a hamper on a lot of the work that was being done there. But it was excellent work. But yeah, like there's a lot of these like definitive like units that I would say of like easy things to point to and be like, yeah, this is an event you would go to. But I think because probably the volume of people working within those circles versus the volume of people working without, like trying to find their way into the industry, or like trying to land jobs or trying to figure out where they fit. Like I think there's a lot more just kind of like general artists in and around the area that might lend to that perception a little more because it's such like a large volume wise community of people and like newer entrants potentially. I don't know.
Yeah, yes, I thank you for that. And I think largely it's probably a mix of everything you said and just my sample size being not as good of a sample size as I thought it was. Um,
I will say too,
'Cause
like I think comparatively, Toronto's like game development scene maybe is not quite as um I guess like strong or cohesive as like Montreal or Vancouver, because I know Montreal has like huge tax breaks for game development stuff. Like that's why so many studios are based out of Montreal, is because they can do it cheaper over there because they give so much like media credits and stuff. Um, which is also like part of what keeps the Toronto scene more afloat, is a lot of like government funding to try to like build prototypes to go out to publishers and stuff. So it could potentially be that comparatively, Toronto next to something like Montreal is a little bit weaker of a showing.
yes, also a good point as well. So yeah, thank you for that. And like I said before, I didn't, I the way I originally asked the question, I know it sounded way more negative than
No,
it
you're
was. I
okay.
didn't, yeah, yeah. Because like at no point was I trying to imply that there was a gang fights similar to Anchorman, like
Yeah.
indie group A, indie group B, like Gamma Space fighting
We
the Hand Eye Society, like, getting out there, one guy pulling out a grenade that they just had, you know what I mean?
we go to the parking lot and we all have our switches and we have a Splatoon fight for turf wars.
Yeah.
No, no, you're totally okay. It's I didn't take it that way also, to be clear. It was definitely a thing of like, oh, I've actually not heard that sentiment. So I wonder if that's like a common sentiment or if it's something that yeah, maybe is new or just comes from something else. It's totally fine.
So, you know, thank you for also not seeing it that way. I appreciate that. However, I'm not gonna lie, it would be hilarious if that is how disputes were settled. Everyone pulled out their switches and had a Splatoon turf war battle.
I'll bring it up. I'll be like, hey, anytime we have a disagreement, what do people think of this?
Now, even better is if those disagreements came after the game night where you all played Mario Party, right? Um, but no, thank you for speaking to that. I appreciate that, and it is going to be something I'm going to try and do better to pay attention to. Just because, yeah, I think I just had a bad sample size, and it created a weird perspective on my end. And I'm also definitely going to check out the Hand Eye Society. I'm aware of Gamma Space, so I don't need to look into them as much. Um,
Hmm.
but the Hand Eye Society, I think. Uh, this is the first time I'm remembering hearing it. I very possible I've heard it before and I just didn't do anything with it. So thank you for that all the same. Um, Now I am curious because like you mentioned that you graduated for in 2018 for game related um with a related 4 year. I think that would be a bachelor's.
Mhm.
Sorry, I went to college. It was a 3 year thing and it was a diploma. So like I don't know what happens after that. Um, but I'm wondering how is it that you got into developing and making games, right? Like, there's the obvious you went to school for it, so that's how you did it from that aspect. But like, what made you want to do that?
Yeah, honestly, I always say like I never intended to make games from the get-go. Like when I was younger, I would do stuff that I wouldn't realize was technically game development until later. Like what I used to do was almost kind of like I don't know what you call it, interactive fiction, but on the fly. I remember one summer I was staying with my cousin, and I would kind of say, okay, it started as like, what if you were locked in a lighthouse and you couldn't get out and you didn't have a phone? And then it kind of turned into this like interactive fiction thing where he started describing what he would do, and I would be like almost adventure game, like, oh, you can't open that door, it's locked, or like, oh yeah, you see a light from under the thing, and then we'd have like this back and forth, and that was every time I think about that, I'm like, that's probably the first game that I ever designed technically, but it doesn't fit into the trappings of like a traditional game. But to me, like all through high school and stuff, I didn't have much of a direction. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I've always kind of been a creative person who enjoys like kind of like artistic pursuits. I've liked sketching and drawing and stuff, but I've never really seen myself as an artist. Um, but I didn't really have any specific drive, I guess. And games always seem like the kind of thing where it's like, oh, I couldn't make a game. That's like software engineering. Like I'm not I'm the student who gets D's and C minuses in math. There's not a chance I'm going to become a software engineer, you know? Um, and then I went to college for just kind of like general arts because it was still kind of me sort of figuring out what I wanted to do. And during that the college had, I think, like a lot of students who wanted to get into video games, but they were primarily an arts college, but they opened up like a game design program that was still super new, but you could tell they kept pushing it people into it, being like, you should try this game design stuff, it's great if you're like if you like art and you like games. So that's all I knew about it. So I was like, I like art and I like games, maybe I can do art for games, because initially I wanted to do illustration or like animation, and then I realized what people had to do to get into those fields, and I was like, "Oh boy, it couldn't be me." I'm not. I knew I wasn't that good of an artist at the time to be able to actually do that, and I wasn't committed enough to like the art of animation or anything. So I was like, "I'm gonna check out game design. I'll see how it goes," which I know is like a very weird thing to say about like potentially getting a bachelor's degree of like, I'll see how it goes. But I went into it like not really knowing what to expect. I wasn't completely sold on it, and then yeah, I just kind of started learning all the different like parts of the craft, and to my surprise, I was doing pretty well because I was interested. It was the first time I was doing something that I was like marginally interested in versus like stuff that I felt like I was forcing myself to do. Like the difference between high school and college was night and day because for the first time I'm like, oh, I have like some kind of commitment to this. It's something that I want to actually learn, and that kind of was very conductive to me starting to form my education and sense of self, which was really nice. Um, through college, I also realized that there was a shortage of like programmers, like people who wanted to do actual implementation work. That like whenever we did group work, nobody would want to take that role. And I was always bad at it, but I hated feeling useless. So that's when I started to really get into programming side of things and being like, okay, I'm going to be the one who figures this code out because if I don't do it, no one's doing it, and then I can't make a game if it doesn't get done. So then, yeah, I kind of got deep in on that. Um, but yeah, it was kind of like just this series of uh like self-reflection moments and like being like kind of searching around for a thing that would have its hooks in me because I knew above anything else like I have family who have worked like blue collar jobs and everything, and I knew I didn't want to work a job that like I wasn't dedicated to or felt like I really wanted to commit myself to in some way, because I think that just wouldn't it's not my kind of personality. It just wouldn't sit with me. I would my life would be very miserable. Um, so yeah, it kind of just I ended up landing into it that way. And then once I started realizing, hey, this is a thing I can both do and potentially see myself like doing 10 years from now, that was the point when I started to like go, okay, I got to take this really seriously. I need to start like networking. I got to start like building connections, getting to know more about the industry, stuff like that. Um, and that's when I really like pushed myself into it to really start chasing that. But yeah, it was definitely not something that I knew off the bat. Like some people are like, "Oh, I've been making games since I was 5," and like, yeah, I've been like, I was coding in BASIC when I was little, and naturally, I just started to make. It was like not that for me at all. It was everything is chaotic until I found game design as a thing, as like a medium or like a principle or a skill that you could develop, and then from there, I was like, okay, I'll sail with this. But even like my professional work too, a lot of the big work that I've done has been level design. Like at Ubisoft Toronto, that was what I did the most. But even that was like kind of by necessity. I kind of like all parts of game development, but um, somebody asked me before, like I was a mentee, and my mentor had asked me, like, what is it about level design that attracted you? And I was like, I had to think of an excuse because I was like, I don't specifically like level design. I just like game development in general. I like all parts of it. So there's nothing about one specific element that specifically like had its hooks in me. It was just sort of all of it. So it was kind of funny to like actively find excuses to be like, "Oh, I love making worlds." But no, I like making games. Games are a fun and interesting and engaging medium for me. So anything I can do that is kind of like attached to that, I think just kind of is my jam, I guess.
So thank you for sharing that. And there's a few things that I find amusing in that. And the one, the dancing around trying to answer what personally how I would have answered the why level design in your situation would have probably been Asana tasks. That's why, like just that's what they gave me. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
but no, but thank you, thank you for thank you for explaining everything or talking to everything. Um, and the idea of effectively running a adventure game, uh, uh, like or like a tabletop game without the dice or what have you, when you were a child, uh, is I just find that really amusing, because like that's I've never heard anyone doing that before. Like, it's kind of like an interactive escape room where you are the interactive, right? Like, instead of like, today that'd be a thing that would probably take off, right? Like that's a concept that probably exists and probably works. But, like years and years ago, I I I think people would have said that's crazy to, talk like that or do something like that. But that sounds have like a narrator in the corner of the room, be like, "Oh, that door doesn't work. You gotta find the key." And then in that moment, the two of you creating the situation for how that key could exist is just really interesting to me. So thank you for sharing that and hearing that, and then knowing that like your one of your first real projects, quote unquote real, right? Was making a TTRPG system source book, whatever, like however you would like to phrase it. Um, it makes a lot of sense, like how those lines would connect or line up there. Um, so thank you for sharing all that. And I would like also to say that for as someone that has also created um, a TTRPG, like a framework or what have you, um, anyone that says they do that, I fully have to applaud them for the insanity it takes to try and do that. Um, and this is coming from someone that went out of their way to try and make something that was really simple. And as a friend put it, the most convoluted, simple system they've ever seen. Um, so like, which is a weird thing that, those two words don't go together, especially they just contradict. However, like congratulations on making a system, basically is what I'm getting at. I know what it takes to put into um to even like begin to do that. and like to do it is just insanity. So good work. Congratulations on doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny because like it is one of those things like the because I teach now, so a lot of my conversations are with like students who are still kind of learning how to make games, and that is always the common theme is like, man, I wish I made it smaller. Like nobody comes out of their projects going, I wish this was bigger or more complicated. Everybody goes, this should have been smaller, and I shouldn't have done as much. And like making a TTRPG where my goal was like, I want to make this so you don't have to have anything to play it. Um, that was like a big component of that is like every time I would think of something that was cool or like caught my interest, the first thing I had to think of was, does this break that like core conceit of like you don't need anything except for your brains to work together? And if you do, then get rid of it. Like I had ideas where I'm like, maybe you can just have one dice, or maybe it's just you have a coin, and I'm like, no, like it shouldn't be that. It needs to, because I also knew that risk that you're talking about where it's like, hey, you could then like if you once you let that slip, well, what other kind of systems am I adding? You know, it's very easy to start making like a bunch of really cool crunchy stuff that then starts to get in the way of just having a bare bones thing that like is kind of elegant in its simplicity. Bleh, simplicity. So yeah, it's I get it. I totally get it.
And I'm also wondering, from your experiences, is there like any words of encouragement you would have to share? And I imagine in your case, as a as a teacher, there you probably have had to give some kind of words of encouragement before. So maybe this is going to be a real easy one for you. I don't know, but like, do you have any words of encouragement that you would give to your students, to your a younger you, to people that want to do get into the industry or follow in like kind of the same path you might have or what have you? However, you would like to take that question, basically.
Hmm. Um, it I'm a very like cynical person. So my immediate gut reaction is no, I don't. But I do think that there's like it's a position that I put in a lot now, having gone through the industry and now having to teach, especially during a time where we have record numbers of layoffs that we've never seen before ever in video games. Like probably half the people that I know who had jobs in games are now looking for work, and those are people who like have established jobs and everything. So especially as a emerging game developer or as a student or somebody who wants to get into it, it's hard to find those encouraging things to say. But um, I think the thing that I would hammer home the most and kind of ties back to like my own story a little bit is like I think outside of finding a job, um, especially with how the world is nowadays, things are generally not taking turns for the better in a lot of places. Things are getting a little more rough, whether it's economically, politically, stuff like that. I think it's really important to find out, especially if you're a creative person who wants to make things, is do some soul searching. Take some time for yourself, figure out what kind of art you're interested in making, what kind of art you enjoy the process of, what kind of art like um, gets into your head the most, kind of helps you get in that good mental and creative space, um, and do that for your own gratification first above anything else, and then see maybe later if it's a thing that you want to expand or take more seriously. But I think that it's really important to come at this stuff primarily from the point um, of just doing it for your own self fulfillment. That should come above everything else. I know people who I went to college with who a few years into the program were like, "Yeah, I'm dropping out," and I was like, "Oh, why? Like your grades are good, like you're doing really well," and they're like, "I just didn't like it," and I think some people looked at that as like, oh my God, like why would you drop out three years into a 4 year program? Because it's like you could just get your degree or whatever. But for them, it was like I respected the self assurance of like I know they did some soul searching. It's not an easy decision to make, but they went, I just know that if I kept doing this, I wouldn't be happy. and I chose not to do it. And like that's easier said than done, obviously. I think um it doesn't always work out that you can be happy and do the thing that you want to do, obviously, but like I think that um if you're a creative person, your relationship to the creative works that you create and the hobbies that you have is like very, very important. Like it's more important to, if you like making games, more important than getting a job that has you making games all the time, which can actually destroy your love of games. The important thing is to keep it as a hobby first and then see if it's a thing you think you could stomach turning into a bigger thing. Because sometimes it's better to just hang on to that as a hobby and like have a day job doing something else. There's a lot of people who do that and actually like the balance more. Excuse me. um like for me that was that was actually the reason I started doing my own projects was when I was working at Ubisoft. I didn't have any like creative freedom over anything I did. I would kind of just like be in a position where directors would tell me what to do and I would do it. Um, Occasionally I got to do my own thing. Um, but by and large, it was like, oh, I'm not getting any creative fulfillment that I used to get out of making my own games. So I'm going to just start doing my own stuff so I can get that creative energy back and feel good about it. And I was kind of using game development as a hobby to escape my day job of doing game development. So, so I think, yeah, it's just really important to hang on to that as a hobby first, and then don't feel like you need to monetize your hobbies, please.
So thank you for that. I think everything you said is like is absolutely wonderful. I like the idea of doing something for yourself first. Um, right? Like you said, yeah, everything you said is you know spot on in my opinion. Like if you're not going to enjoy doing it, don't do it. But also do it because you want to enjoy doing it first and foremost, above all else. So thank you for speaking to that. I think I think what you said is fantastic. I think it's wonderful advice or words of encouragement. Because a lot of the time, um, you have people that get into the mindset of like a hustle culture or whatever, and like you don't have to do that, right? Like like just breathe, enjoy it, enjoy what you're
Mhm.
doing, and then if it works, then try and do it. But like don't do a thing only for the money, right? Like there was one previous guest who famously said, if you're doing this to make money, don't sell drugs instead. And like, it's like, yeah, like, you don't do anything for the money if you think you're gonna hate it, right? Like you do it because
Mhm.
you love it, you love the idea of it, right? So thank you for speaking to that. I just think that's uh I like when guests speak to things and it has like a very similar theme in their answers,
Mhm.
because it's kind of like 9 out of 10 dentists. um, and what you did there is just basically like you were like the ninth dentist kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like thank you for that. I'm always happy and enjoyed to see like the continuation of that kind of mindset, especially when it's do it because you love it and enjoy what you're doing first, just because that's fantastic advice in general for life, right?
Yeah, like I think especially nowadays a lot of people and especially young people have guns to their heads. Like like the gun is to your head and you're like, "Okay, I have to choose a job. Like I have to choose the thing I'm going to do for the next 40 years." And everybody says, "Okay, what's the things that I enjoy and like doing the most and could see myself enjoying the longest?" And I think honestly, like sometimes it's okay to have kind of a crappy day job and still enjoy doing what you love. Like I'm I've my backup plan has always been get a job in fast food again because I actually miss being on my feet and doing that work and like do game development for fun or something. Right now we're fortunate we're in a pretty stable situation, but it's one of those things where I'm like I don't think there's any shame in in working just like a regular ordinary job and then doing stuff for fun on the outside. I think we tend to think that like once we get a job doing the thing we love, we're going to love it the whole time. And honestly, the opposite is true. I think most people I know who loved games going into video game development come out of it being like, yeah, I do other stuff for fun now, and video games are just too much of my work. I don't enjoy them anymore. So sometimes it can really turn it around on you.
Yes, it's easy to get burnt out on things that you love, especially, right? Um, Now, with that in mind, I think this is a good jumping off point for this one. Um, and speaking of doing things outside of your job, uh, outside of like games, what do you enjoy doing? Like, how do you relax? What do you do to relax, or other hobbies? And I'm expecting rock climbing to be said only because that's what every game dev seems to be doing. However, if it's not, as well, if games is not, both perfectly valid, I still like to ask. And if games is your hobby, also perfectly valid.
I don't rock climb. I can proudly say. I uh I have a fear of heights, and I'm also a large person who doesn't have a lot of upper body strength. So it doesn't work great for me. But I do know a lot of devs who have adopted like bouldering and stuff. It was also big in college. I feel like it's just kind of come back in general, hasn't it? It's very weird. Um
Sorry. Yes, yes, it is. Sorry, I didn't realize that was a question for me. Yeah, it's interesting that it's come back. When I was in college the first time in the late 2000s, so 6, 7, 8, or what have you, people were getting into it then as well. Anyway, sorry, you were saying.
No, no, yeah, yeah. I uh, I have too many hobbies to the point that it's like detrimental because I'll be like, oh, I got this other thing to do for this hobby, or I got this thing to do. Um, I do art, so I will like draw and stuff. I don't post a lot of that like publicly necessarily, but a lot of like digital painting and whatnot. Um, I we have an old like Canon camera, like a DSLR that we had years ago that we bought used that has never worked, that I've gotten working and am now doing photography. I've gotten into electronics like Arduino and like ESP32. And so that's like also a new thing that I adopted like last year. I enjoy gardening. I got a little like balcony that's got some plants on it that I kind of like tinkering with here and there. I bought a 3D printer that I've been using to 3D print stuff, which has been pretty fun. And my most recent one actually is I bought some used rollerblades, and I've been taking those out for a spin probably like 2 or 3 days a week, and that's been really good just to, kind of get the calorie count in because turns out it's really good exercise. So I've been doing that. But I mentioned before street art too. Like it's kind of funny. I like stuff that feels like it's like a new challenge or like learning new things. So all of this stuff has been very good for that kind of building my holistic self, I guess.
So, thank you for sharing that. And I like the idea of of the building your holistic self, like the self-improvement in a sense or what have you. I just like the idea of that. And uh yes, as someone that has heard extensively from others, rollerblading is crazy amount of work for some reason.
Yeah.
Like just the amount of effort, the amount of uh 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 like when people talk about like getting their steps in or what have you, it's like for every push on a rollerblade, I think it was, it's like that's the equivalent to like 10 steps. It's like
Yeah. I
it's not
I
easy.
It's crazy. It's weird. I was shocked because I'm like a larger person, so I try to watch my weight. I also really enjoy eating, so it's the constant balance struggle of I love food and also I really should be healthy. So I go to the gym like 3 times a week, and every time I do cardio. But I can run for about 10 minutes until I get tired and don't want to do it anymore. But rollerblading, I can do for like 3 hours and just be fine to keep going. But weirdly enough, rollerblading burns more calories than I do when I run. I have a calorie tracking app, and when I check my rollerblading calories burned, after like 3 hours, it's like 1,500. It's like so much. So I'm like, oh, if I keep this up, I can eat a lot. Hmm.
um, as you know, as someone that likes the idea of being like, I don't go. I forget who it was. I think it was an old Louis C.K. joke. But like, I don't go to the gym to lose weight. I go to the gym to eat more.
Yeah. There,
Um,
there's a there's a I forget who it is. The Exploding Kittens. Oh, the Oatmeal. The artist, the Oatmeal, who did the art for the board game Exploding Kittens, but they did a comic at one point about how their body is not a temple. Their body is a very fast moving garbage like dumpster. So it's like I eat a ton of and I exercise like crazy so that I can eat a ton of crap.
um, yes, I forget whose joke this one, but a similar one that I've always liked is, I treat my body like the 7-Eleven next to the temple.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm gonna
Um,
use that one.
I honestly, it might be an old Adam Sandler joke, to be perfectly honest. But I forget whose it is. But like, I've always loved that one because it's like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. Like, I treat my body like a temple. It's like, cool, you do that. I'm treating mine like the 7-Eleven next to it. Let's
Yeah.
go. Um, but no, thank you for speaking to that. Um, and sharing your hobbies. I know that it's not always it's I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. I've had some people where after they're like, "My hobbies are really boring." I'm like, "No, like, their hobbies are what you do. They're what you enjoy. Thank you for sharing it, right?" So like, thank
Mhm.
you for sharing. I know there's sometimes a perception of like, "Yeah, I garden." Like, okay. Like,
I mean,
what I'm getting at is everything doesn't have to like, if you enjoy it, some people think like when you share your hobbies, it has to be like this big, exciting things. Whereas sometimes it's like, I just like coloring. It's like, yeah, great, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Like, it's,
sometimes
if that helps.
in games too, it's also like how to like sometimes you got to ask people like what do you do that isn't video games? Because I feel like people who like eat, sleep and breathe video games and work in the games industry are like overwhelming, whereas some of the more like down to earth, easy to engage with people are the people who are like, yeah, I work in video games and on the side I just have this really sick garden that I love attending to, or I have cats that I just love a lot and just hang out with and stuff like that. Like you got to have that like healthy detachment of I work on games all day and then I go home and I like watch movies or something great.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Now, Devin, I realize we're getting kind of close to the line. However, I do have a few other questions I would like to ask you. If you're okay with me stealing a little bit more of your time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. Now, this one is, as I said before we started recording, one I literally thought of yesterday, and I'm kind of surprised it took me this long to think of this question, or maybe the way to phrase this question. But I'm wondering, was there a game that you've played? It doesn't have to be in your childhood or what have you, like just in general, a game that you played that you went in with, I don't want to say like horrible expectations or what have you, but like a game that you played that you went, oh wow, and it surprised you how much you enjoyed it.
Hmm. Let me think about it.
And I would like to know, this is really unfair because, like I said, this one usually I give, for anyone that's listening, I give the questions I'm asking people. I give some form of preparation. This one I'm putting you directly on the spot. So thank you, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's also an interesting one because like the game that surprises you is not necessarily a game that you remember almost like because I feel like oh your favorite game or the game that you're currently playing it's like that sort of stuff is like it's easy to just kind of bring up from the back of your from the front of your memory because it's a thing that you're usually thinking about or engaging with but surprising I feel like there's probably been a lot of games that have surprised me that I don't necessarily like come back to frequently or I'm currently playing but it's one of those things where I'm like I know there's an answer here I just have to roll over it a little bit.
Now, I'll be honest as well. If you don't have an answer, perfectly valid, especially because I'm dropping this one on you. How about I ask you a different one, and if you do have an answer in a minute or two, we can get it. If not, I can just chalk it up to I shouldn't have dropped it on you in on the spot. Um, which again, I'm aware of, how unfair and mean that is of me. So let me ask you this one instead, and if you have one, we can go back to it. If not, perfectly fine. That's on me. But
Okay.
like, do you have a favorite game or favorite games or like a favorite series or what have you? And what is it about, the games, the series, however, that kind of makes it sit above all for you?
Yeah, it's funny because I have a reputation with my friend group that I'm the person who's really good at recommending games to people. Like, I when I figure out what games they play, I go, "Oh, this game, you'd like it," and they usually like it because it's very similar to the like genre or group of games that they play. But then when it comes back around to me, nobody has a beat on what I play because the things I play are so like kind of sparse and like randomly out there in ways that like there's not really like a commonality between a lot of them. I don't just play like one genre. I kind of genre hop and do a bunch of different stuff. Some of the ones that immediately come to mind for like favorite games are usually more systems driven ones. I guess like the kind of games that you almost expect sort of like programmers to play. Like Dwarf Fortress is one that I kind of enjoyed or got pretty attached to for a while. CK3, Crusader Kings 3, or actually I started with Crusader Kings 2. It's probably the game series I have the most playtime in. Is the Crusader Kings games, which are like grand strategy games in medieval times, sort of thing. Um, Lately, the one that I've started playing a lot more than I expected is Arma 3, which is like a milsim shooter thing. Uh, I I think those games are generally really tacky, but occasionally there's like game modes or servers that I'm like, oh, I really actually just enjoy like hopping on here and like shooting some dudes or like just goofing around with random strangers. It's pretty fun. Um, and my favorite niche one to always bring up is Samurai Warriors. I love that game series, and there's not a lot of people on this planet who I know who also love that game series. So it's the one where I'm always like putting it out to be like, look, I like this. Does anyone else please? Does anyone play this? And the answer is usually no. But yeah, those are some favorites that come to me off the top of my head. Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. And I find I'm trying to think of the right way to put this, just especially off the back of what you just said. Um, it it's interesting that you mentioned Samurai Warriors, and it's also interesting because hey, we Tecmo, hey, we I Tecmo. I say it as if it's an actual word, and my partner the last time was like, "Wait, what did you say?" I'm like, "I say it like it's a word, not like an acronym." Um, I don't know. It's how I've always done it. It's weird. It's also like how I just recently realized I've been saying algorithm wrong for years now.
It
Um,
means you read a lot. It means you're familiar with the way the word looks, but maybe not how it's said.
someone my an English teacher made fun of me for saying genre wrong for that one
Oh,
in grade 10. And I'm like, dude, I hate
oh,
you all like I hate you already. What are you doing?
yeah,
And
from
he
the
got the
English
whole
teacher too. That's a low
and then he
blow.
and then he got the whole class laughing at me. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
Boo.
do you I'm like, I'm a 15-year-old kid. Do you hate me that much? Like,
Yeah, that sucks.
did I do something to you? Like, whatever. Anyway, sorry, weird tangent. Um, but the thing that I don't get is we have I don't like 100 Dynasty Warrior games. I don't know anymore. If you like, with one,
Mhm.
two, three, three extreme, three kingdoms, whatever. Like, there's just so many spin-offs and advanced versions and whatever. Samurai Warriors, they did what, like two of, and then they immediately jumped to Orochi Warriors, which I think is like a mashup of Dynasty and Samurai.
Mm.
Um, so it's like it's funny to me that a Japanese company is not doing has not done any warring games for Japan. the Japanese history, right? Like, um, so like
Yeah.
I don't mean this in a bad way. I'm not shocked. A lot of people are like, "Wait, samurai warriors is a thing?" It's like, well, yeah, because they just don't care about it for some reason when they could.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a testing ground sometimes for Dynasty Warriors, where they'll like run some ideas through a Samurai Warriors game and see if it sticks, and if it doesn't, then they just keep doing what they're doing with Dynasty Warriors. Um, Also, yeah, it's like funny to be like, you know what game I like? You know that really popular or like moderately popular obscure Japanese game about Chinese history? I like this spin-off of that one. It's like, yeah, it doesn't surprise me either that no one no one else likes that series specifically. I mean, I play the Dynasty Warriors games too because they're very just like similar, like it feels like I'm playing the same game basically, but it is the kind of thing where like I like the spin-off of that basically nobody plays and they haven't been consistently updating in like a decade. Those are my games.
As someone that also kind of bounced off of Warriors games, for me personally, it was just they all felt, I'm gonna say samey in the weirdest way possible.
Mhm.
Because like yeah, they're all Warriors games. Of course they feel samey. But like all of the older ones, they felt samey in a bad way, like stiff. They're just like too rigid in what they did. And then years ago, I played Hyrule Warriors on the Wii U. Of all talking of weird things that no one knows exists. Um, I played that one on the Wii, and like that one was kind of my like, oh wow, they actually do not stiff, rigid things because I don't know if it's a newer thing, and that was just my first introduction to like the new era, quote unquote. But
Mm.
they feel much better now, and like I think that's also probably a hard sell for Samurai Warriors, is because I believe it existed in the era where they were pumping out like one a year or like a version of one a year, like Dynasty Warriors 4, Dynasty Warriors XL, whatever, Empires, whatever. Um, so like I don't think that helps it either, is that it came from a time where they were making one on like the Assassin's Creed schedule.
You're you're gonna have me going off now. You're gonna set me off in a moment. I'm gonna be talking. Um, yeah, it's I made a video recently about like I also make videos. I forgot to mention that, I guess. I have a YouTube channel that is Slaughter and Echo where I make video essays about video games. That's another hobby of mine. But I made a video about the new Dynasty Warriors because they came out with one at the beginning of this year, and it's like the best that series has ever been, and it's like the most accessible to get into. So if you're ever looking to get into a Dynasty Warriors game, I would highly recommend that one because it's really good. But part of that video was me talking about how stiff, yeah, those old games were, and like they do definitely like even if you look back on some of the more recent Dynasty Warriors games that came out on like PS4 and stuff, it's like you can feel that the engine they're building on is fighting them the whole way. Like the camera does not really move that much. The VFX are very like underwhelming. The attacks don't have much punch. Whereas like this new one that they did, which I think is built on some proprietary engine that was used for like other JRPGs, like it it fixes so much of those like game feel problems that like turn around and make it feel really good to play. Because yeah, I would totally like agree that like none of those games feel very good to play at all. And Samurai Warriors did have they did make some newer ones, but it does not surprise me you probably don't know about them because at some point they're just making those games for people like me who are sickos who have liked those games for 20 years. But they made one that was Samurai Warriors 5 where they redesigned a bunch of the characters and cut the number of playable characters down and gave it like a really cool kind of like um, wood wood block kind of VFX or like some kind of like calligraphy VFX that look pretty sick. But like they do kind of do experiments here and there, but uh yeah, a lot of the foundational problems of those games don't change much because it does feel like they've been, especially Dynasty Warriors, pumping them out like once every year for the past 20 years, sometimes more than that. Sometimes they'll make like a version of Dynasty Warriors and then the Empire's version that comes out like 3 months later that is the same thing but a strategy game. And you're like, no wonder the quality is suffering because they have it on such a aggressive schedule.
So I'm happy that what I said rings true, like that you
Yeah.
100% knew what I was saying. Because I've shared that with people before, and they're like, "Oh, you're crazy." And I'm like, like, did we have we played the same games? Like,
What
I've been playing Dynasty Warriors since 3. Like,
did you share
did we
that with
play this?
fans?
I think, yeah, that's probably the issue.
That's the problem. They can't be
That's
critical of the thing they like. Come on.
You're probably right. That's probably the big issue because it was in this case it was talking about the Gundam ones, and I'm like, the Gundam ones felt really rigid. Like, what are you
Oh
talking
yeah.
about? They're like, no, you're crazy. I'm like, okay. I'm like, go play Hyrule Warriors because that was
I,
the newest one that felt really smooth. I'm like, go play that, play the Gundam one. You tell me where
as a fan
I'm
of
wrong.
the series, like I played the Gundam one on like PS3 or whatever, and I also thought it sucked. Like it was not amazing.
I feel vindicated. Thank you. Um, that's where I played it. I bought I got it strictly because it was a Gundam one. I'm like, oh, I'm like, okay. Um,
And like
the
I think that's why the I feel like that's partially why more people still know about them nowadays is because Hyrule Warriors and like One Piece Warriors exist because they started tapping into those markets that like don't really like their kind of genre of game, but really want to play like a Zelda game or something. So they can like or like kind of bring One Piece into it where it's like I don't really play these games, but I can be Monkey D. Luffy running around punching people, and it kind of like bridges that gap a little bit. Whereas I feel like most people don't really care or know, at least in the Western world, about like Romance of the Three Kingdoms. So of course, why would they invest their time in a game about a thing that they like thematically don't really understand or have any investment in?
Wait, are you trying to tell me people don't know who Ganning of the Bell is or Kermit the Frog Low Bay?
Not anymore. The
Oh wait, no, it
youth
was it was
they
Kermit
don't
Cow Cow,
remember.
wasn't it?
I actually don't know what's Kermit Cow Cow.
The
Is
the
he
voice
dressed
actor
funny?
sound no, the voice actor sounded like Kermit.
Oh my god, I'm gonna look
um,
that up
on
after.
on like the PS2 one, so like Dynasty Warriors 3 and 4, I think it was. One of the people, I just don't remember the name. They just sounded like Kermit the Frog. It was a meme or a joke, or I'm crazy and hallucinating. Either of the true two, but I'm fairly confident I'm one of them sounded like Kermit. It was a bad dub. No offense to the person that was doing it. It's just they sound like Kermit.
No, those like a lot of the early dub, especially for the early games where they actually because they stopped at least for like Samurai Warriors, they stopped localizing them into like English audio for a while, so you wouldn't even get some of those voice lines, but the really early stuff, you occasionally had characters who were just like, man, I don't know who this voice actor is, but they're like going off the chain. They're like having fun with this in a way that really kind of gives it that kind of camp quality.
Yes, 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 that is a good way to put it. The dubs were campy as all hell, and you kind of just lived for it. Like you just kind of had to live for it because, like it's similar to the Symphony of the Night opening, right? Like just the worst
Yeah.
or the best worst read or whatever that could exist. They did it, and they did it with their heart. And it's like screw it, like you gotta love it.
I kind of mentioned this in the video I made about it too, but like also it not having like dubs or like even if it has dubs but they're bad was such a like accessibility thing or an approachability thing because those games go crazy with the amount of stuff that happens sometimes, and if you don't have somebody speaking your native language into your ear saying we better go kill this guy, then you're not going to know to go kill that guy because you're so swept up in everything else. So it is kind of funny. Kermit the Frog might have been weird, but at least he guided us to go fight Lubu or whatever. Avoid Lubu.
Yes, exactly. Now, Devin, I am curious. No, sorry, I'm phrasing this wrong because I was getting distracted by the whole Kermit the Frog thing. Um, I'm I want to ask this because, like I said, earlier, I want to like move us towards the door. I don't want to steal too much more of your time. However, I would, I would like to, if you have the time, I'd like to hit you up with some lightning round questions. Now, these are lighthearted, nonsensical, and more or less random, and they're intended to be like quick, no judgment, uh, questions that you can just answer however you see fit. Am I good to steal some more time from you for that?
Hit me.
Awesome. So, because I've been asking everyone this one, and I'm fine with it because it's the dumbest one possible, and I love it. Um, but which video game character do you think is most likely to want uppies from a goth dommy mommy?
Want uppies from a goth dommy mommy.
Yes,
Oh, I don't know what I
you heard
expected from lightning round. Um, Uppies from a
not
goth
that I'm
dommy
guessing.
mommy. I feel like, well, I guess I'm just imagining the one who probably would be most likely to get uppies from a goth dommy mommy, and it'd have to be the guy, whoever the protagonist is of Resident Evil 7. That's the one where with the giant dragon lady, right?
Yes, yes, she is a giant dragon lady. You are correct. Yes.
So whoever that guy is, Jack or like Ethan or so, the guy who keeps getting his hand torn off and then going, "Oh no, my hand."
Which let's be honest, that's a perfectly reasonable response to getting your hand ripped off. Is oh no, again, let me just flunk.
Oh,
Okay.
put that thing back on. All right, we're good.
Nothing weird here.
Alternatively, not the one who's not likely to receive it but still wants it would be Mario.
Thank you. I appreciate I appreciate the coin flip there. Um so yes, in the same vein of nonsense and, totally not preparing you for the lightning round, which is part of the amusement for me. I'm gonna hit you with one that though I think you might have a better idea of.
Uh-oh.
Um, which game character do you think is most likely to think of the Holy Roman Empire at least once a week?
Oh my God. Who is most likely to think of the Holy Roman Empire at least once a week? Problem is, my brain is like, okay, Crusader Kings 3, who is in the Holy Roman Empire? But no, that I don't think you can say historical figures count as um, video game characters just because they're in Crusader Kings. That feels unfair. Holy Roman Empire. Um, Darn, I feel like I'm trying to imagine. I didn't play enough Valkyria Chronicle, but I feel like there's almost certainly a character in there who would have some weird complex about that. But I don't know any characters from that game. Uh, I'm thinking. I think I'm thinking way too hard about this. I know it's lightning round. I'm supposed to be fast, but I'm like thinking of video game characters, and then I'm like, no, he wouldn't know about the Holy Roman Empire. Stupid, stupid.
Taking it far too literal.
hmm I'm like, no, it couldn't be a Nintendo character because I don't think the Holy Roman Empire exists in Nintendo worlds. Kirby.
Yes, fair enough.
And
Fair
I
enough.
refuse to elaborate.
Perfectly valid on that. Um, so I'm gonna hit you, I think, with what I feel is another nonsense one.
Okay.
And the problem is I have a few nonsense ones, and that's where I, get hit with it. Um, so here's again, I think this will be a good nonsense one. Which video game character do you think is most likely to put orange juice over their cereal?
Orange juice over their cereal. Okay. I guess the question is, are they tired or are they like just sick like that, like disgusting?
I personally
Um,
view it as unhinged.
yeah, that does sound like unhinged. It does sound intentional. Um, oh. Oh, the I don't know why I'm thinking of characters I don't know the names of from games I've never played, but The guy from the Metal Gear game with the when you're riding with this swords, but he's the like president or whatever, and he's like, haha, and you fight him on a train. Oh no. What's that guy's name?
Isn't he just a president? Or do you
I
mean the other samurai-ish mech guy?
uh I think is he just does he have a name though? Senator Armstrong? Is that him? Yeah, Senator Armstrong.
So the actual president or what have you. Yes, okay. But yes, he's unhinged enough that tracks.
Yeah, I'm like he would just be like, actually, I'm not even sure if this guy eats. No, that's my answer. It's fine. Like he just seems unhinged enough that he would just do anything. It starts
So
with the orange juice on the cereal, and then it turns into taking over the U.S.
there, there's that's one of the clear signs of psychopathy, right? Like the first step, is like harming animals. The second step, orange juice over cereal, right?
Yeah,
Like it is
you know you're a
that's the
narcissist when
yeah, you put orange juice on your cereal. But no, Devin, thank you. That was the lightning round. Um I'm
that was so
both
hard.
I'm both apologetic but also appreciative that I caught you off guard with them because like I said before we started recording, I don't provide those in advance because I like to ask them at random, and they're intentionally nonsense,
I want to know
straight
how
up.
I stack up against other people now. I want to be like, I'm gonna go back and listen to the other lightning rounds and see how well I did.
So I will be perfectly honest. You are about average.
Yes.
There are some people that have been completely broken by some of the questions, similar into the vein of the first one of, puppies from a goth dummy mommy. And there are other people that have completely bodied them and just been like, yeah, Kirby, next. Like, sure, okay, moving on. Like, just nope, not elaborating. Kirby, Mario, Luigi. Like,
I
wow.
got the goth dommy mommy question. I was like, oh, I thought these were supposed to be nonsensical. This makes perfect sense to me. I understand all these things.
um, yes, that's also a problem. I think everyone secretly wants uppies from a goth dummy mommy, right?
Of
Like,
course, yeah.
if anyone, I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, but like I think, I don't think anyone would look at Rhea Ripley if she was, saying, "Do you want uppies?" I don't think anyone would deny that.
Yes, of
Male,
course.
female, other,
We
they, then
just want
like
uppies.
I think everyone would be like, "Yes, sure, lift me up, strong woman, please." Um,
Here, here.
anyway, but yes, they are intentionally nonsense, right? So thank you for taking it in stride. Um, and yeah, those are them. Now,
Excellent.
Devin, I don't have anything else to bug you with. I don't want to steal more of your time. However, if there was anything else you did want to discuss, a cool game, what you were doing, something you feel more people should just be more aware of, or if you did have a chance to think of a game that surprised you the most, now would be the time to, speak to any of those things because the floor is all yours as well. Please let everyone know where they can find more information about you, which I'll also include in the episode description.
Perfect. In terms of games that surprised me the most, the one that I keep thinking about is I've evidently have forgotten it, which is very cool. It's called Atlas, Atlyss. It is a kind of like MMO sort of RPG, kind of like very traditional World of Warcraft kind of grinding sort of situation, but it's kind of like a furry RPG, and it's like maybe a little horny, but it's kind of it surprised me because I picked it up because I thought the aesthetic was kind of interesting, and then I played it and I was like, oh, this is actually just a really good game with that sort of veneer on top of it, and so I would recommend people check that out because it is surprising how well made it is, and it looks very cool. It's a very pretty game. Um, in terms of anything to plug or to point people to, uh, I feel like nowadays organizing in the games industry is very important. I would encourage, if you're a game developer especially, to check out CodeCWA. They have a campaign to organize video game workers, and I think that that is only going to get more important the more we see a lot of these layoffs happening and a lot of people kind of struggling through it. We can only It's all got to come to a head, and we can only do so much flailing about independently until we have to kind of get things together and organize a little bit. So check that out. They have free training that you can take that they will teach you how to talk about organizing your workplace with your fellow workers and stuff like that. It's very cool. I've taken the trainings. It is fun and interesting. You will meet great people and you will learn some very useful survival skills, which is nice. And for myself, you can check out my games. They are on itch.io and Steam. If you search Devon Wiersma, you will probably find most of it. I'm also on Blue Sky. You can follow me there for all of my ramblings and nonsense and work in progress stuff on my current games. And yeah, check out my games, buy them, and leave them a rating if you do, because it helps a whole lot.
So thank you, Devin, for that. I will be sure to get those links in the description, so that way anyone can easily just click through and follow and like learn more about it, especially with code CWA. So yeah, thank you for that. Those will all be there as well. Atlas, I'm not gonna lie, not to jump too hard onto this one because I want to let you go. But that's an interesting one because I've looked at it several times and I'm like, this looks like it could be fun. Just from like the old school MMO aesthetic. So it's good to hear firsthand that it's, worth looking into, that it's a fun time. Not that, the Steam reviews, the 15,000 that are overly positive or what have you, would lead otherwise to believe. But it's always nice to hear firsthand that okay, it's worth your time to check out. So thank you for recommending that as well, because like I said, I've looked at it several times and like this looks like a classic MMO game. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
worth your time.
but outside of that, though, if there wasn't anything else, I will let you get on with your day.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me.
So thanks again to Devin for making time to have this conversation with me, and thank you for joining us on the Red Tunic podcast, as well as a special thanks to Roland Jenkins for their use of music from the title track from Road Steep. Be sure to check out the episode description for links to socials, websites, and other means that will allow you to learn more about or support Devin and the podcast. While you're doing that, share, like, follow, and whatever else you think makes the algorithm work. Thanks, until next time.